Alright, time for another draftphysics.com video presentation. Comments. Yeah, I might as well do them, but I mean, they're just so bad, so useless. That, it's just. So, why'd you skip the beginning of my comment? So, he's complaining that I didn't read this tripe he posted before he made his accusation that somehow I have moved a goalpost somewhere. When obviously the goal is the truth. And the whole idea of science is to find the actual truth, not made up shit, not, jumping, not, it's to do it carefully and do it right. Get the right answer. All right. So, I mean, obviously, this is not a quote. He has a quote here. There's no closing quote. So, this isn't actually what anybody said. So, you're doing the experiments wrong because they're proving me wrong. So again, I already made this point over and over again. When the experiment didn't come out Ian's way, he didn't show the experiment, right? He just talked about it and said, gee, it didn't come out right. What's the explanation? We got to do something. We got to find the right answer because it came out his way. And it can't come out his way, can it? No, it can't. I mean, it's exactly what he did. So, I mean, your hypocritical duplicity here is just so obvious that what's the point? You can't make the accusation. You're not in a position to make the accusation. All right, stop that. Do them right. So, and why... And the way we will know they're right is if they prove me right. Duh. So again, that's exactly what Ian is guilty of. Ian. Exactly. So there's no, you can't make this argument. And of course, as anybody who's going to be investigating something, there's a confirmation bias. There's all of those. We're all guilty of that stuff. And I've tried to be a little bit disciplined when I do an experiment. I don't sit there and title the video I have proven or any of that kind of crap. So yeah, we all got to be a little bit more responsible in the fact that none of this science, okay, is simple. Well, it isn't. Okay, some of it's a little complicated. You got to follow, a lot of variables. Everybody should agree on that. Again, I can keep going back to these points in history. Do you think dropping round things, denting clay with round objects is good theory in terms of how to find out how much energy something has? I mean, pointing an arrow decides whether the arrow has how much energy the arrow has, right? Well, obviously it doesn't. So I'm just saying that you're just saying, no, let's just pretend we think making it pointy gave it more energy, when no, it didn't. It's going to distribute the energy differently, and that can matter. And you just don't want to hear that that's what this science is going to have in it, is places where you have to recognize, I see what's happening. There's a catch. Oh. All right. Why'd you say? Okay, I already did that. Anyway, keep moving those goalposts. Okay, so we already did this. Coming up with new excuses, try to fight reality. So again, they keep saying it's reality, yet they haven't any goalpost. I mean, the goalpost for you is, why don't you just prove it takes 9 times the energy to go 3 times as fast? Why don't you just show it? Why don't you show something going 3 times faster doing 9 times the damage? Why don't you show it? Sure, it's going to work out great for ya. It is what it is, okay? It's an argument. You're saying you've already won it somehow. And I'm making the perfectly rational counter argument. You've got to be kidding. I mean, your evidence sucks. Jeez. It's like it's like it's been working so great for you so far. So again, every task, anything you're going to do, sometimes problems come up. You got to start over. You got to re-engineer it. Something, there's always something. Fixing a car, anything. You learn that in life. Sometimes it just isn't easy. So clearly, this is a hard task because frankly, you people are worse than the religious kooks who oppose Darwin. You're worse. Your fanaticism, your obsession, your devotion, you just won't even hear it. You don't even want to hear the subject, let alone have to respond to any of the points made. So I've made all these 5-minute videos on these specific subjects pointing out how this part here doesn't fit, this part is a contradiction, this duality won't work, blah, 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 and you've ignored all of it. You haven't responded to any of it in any coherent manner. All right. Where you've achieved absolutely nothing after years of yelling and insults and dreams of Nobel Prizes. Whatever that is. Yeah, so yeah, but what the dream is merely the fact that this is like any other task or chore or even a game, okay? Playing golf, all right? And you're just trying to do it right. I mean, that's how I've always lived my life, is that, yeah, you're doing something, you want to try to do it perfectly. Why not? You want to accomplish the task. So I'm just saying I noticed something kind of obvious. I think it's kind of obvious that science is crap, okay? I mean, their evidence for all this wooey crap they're speculating about and talking about is just that. They're wormholes, they're multi-dimensions. I mean, they're just making this shit up, for fuck's sake. And it's made out of no real hard evidence at all, just the mushiest little seems like mush, like Pyrrho, you know. Oh, it looks like a water wave. Well, when you really analyze it, it's nothing like a water wave at all. And clearly, you know, I've been over all that with the photons and the two antennas. You know, the radio experiment kind of proves it has nothing to do with waves interfering with each other. I mean, it's all easily proven to be crap. And your counter argument is nothing. And so, yes, so this chore is harder than it should be, because you're not reasonable or fair. You don't think logic has anything to do with it, or facts or evidence. So fuck you. Again, you think I should believe it takes 4 times the fuel, 8 times the fuel, 16 times the fuel to go 4 times as fast. I should believe that, even though you've never shown me anything close to a piece of evidence. Nothing. You have nothing to show me. All right. What a laugh riot. You make the world a worse place. You make the world a worse place. So yeah, that's really convincing when people type the same thing over and over again. Yes, it's a really great rhetorical tactic. Brilliant. I don't think anybody could ever think of that. Man, you really put the excuse machine into overdrive today. So the explanations are excuses. So that's how they think it works. And they think, again, that they somehow aren't using excuses. So what's your excuse for the absence of redoing the Eddington experiment, especially from space? What's your excuse? What's the explanation for not doing an experiment that's critical to physics and never been successfully repeated from Earth, and you can do it from space with 400 times better resolution, 400 times better, and you don't need an eclipse, and it takes 5 minutes. So what's your excuse? What's the excuse machine going to produce? I haven't heard a single person provide anything called a rational explanation. Pyrrho's explanation is the Hubble telescope couldn't do it because it can't look at anything too light. So it can't look at Jupiter, for example, because there's too much light coming off of it. Regardless, we know the Hubble telescope isn't the only telescope in space, and with 400 times better resolution, frankly, you don't need much of a telescope. Eddington only had a 12-inch telescope. Okay. So then he does this crap. E equals 1/2 kx squared. So this is just their bullshit MGH when it's really MGT. So just stuff that can't mean anything to somebody smart. Okay. So there's no point. And this is just he says here, from the video you skipped and missed. There's no video I skipped or missed. And these are just images of, the objects not going twice as far. 4 times as high in the gravity, which I've already explained why it didn't happen in the experiment. The very fact that I discovered, it was news to me. Okay, when you put I put an object on the lever and I move it to another location and it moves almost the same speed no matter where I put it. That's an interesting piece of information. That it goes faster the further out I put it, but we know that has a limit. A little bit faster. All right. If I was Ian, I'd give you the middle finger and let you stew and rot. So again, I won't stew and rot. I mean, the argument still exists that you've had 350 years to do these experiments and you haven't done any of them. Your science hasn't touched this foundational evidence. It hasn't picked at any of this stuff. It does two slit experiments by drawing funny little lines on a board. It doesn't really analyze them. It doesn't sit there and do them and play with them and experiment with them. It doesn't do shit. Your science is lame. It's garbage. It's a religion. It's not a science. It's got totem poles. It doesn't have evidence. Okay, it's nothing less than you deserve, you vile mind heap, whatever that is. You're complaining there is free this and free that in the experiment. Yeah, well, this is sort of important. The conservation of momentum is one of the laws, and Feynman talked about it. Different people. It's a real law, okay? The idea that you're going to conserve energy in the universe. And the choices, again, the original argument was about what is conserved. Okay, so Leibniz wrote about what quantity is conserved in nature. And his argument was that mv squared is conserved. Now, even though mv squared is more than 1/2 mv squared, that was his claim. All right, and Newton's claim was no, mv is conserved, and Descartes' claim was that mv is conserved, and Galileo's claim is that mv is conserved. That's the controversy, and it's an important one. All right, and or the equation all the time, but today there is suddenly missing momentum. That's exactly my point. So the argument being made is that you're showing these particular experiments that show a particular event happening, and you have this obvious duality right in your own face, right? You have an experiment where you say it's valid, yet momentum is destroyed. I can show the 10-ton, 5-ton train thing, and I can show kinetic energy disappearing. Where an object maintains the same momentum but is supposedly done a bunch of work. Heated things, done things, bent things, crushed things. Yet there's no evidence it's done any of that stuff. And there's certainly no evidence in the momentum being completely conserved. I mean, how do you completely conserve the momentum and do work? These are real conundrums, okay, that you're just pretending don't exist. So it's not me that has to make up my mind. What do you think your scientists would really say? You really can't use the excuse that when you add the weight to the 5-ton train, you really can't make the excuse that a bunch of deformation happened and a bunch of sparks happened and a bunch of energy was released. Because you have no evidence that happened. Zero evidence. All right. Make up your mind, dude. So it's not me that has to make up my mind. I've already made up my mind. I'm already insanely confident that Leibniz was wrong in saying it takes the same energy to lift 4 pounds 1 foot as it does to lift 1 pound 4 feet. He's just plain wrong. And everything else they did after that was just plain wrong. Okay. From Ian Gosling's video with one mass, half one distance from the fulcrum. So it's another screenshot, which I already have shown in my video, so meaningless. Okay, you asked where Ian has shown the light object moving slower. He has shown it in the many lever experiments he did, which you now ignore. So where did I ignore them? That's just a lie. And the fact is, what he showed is that, again, superficial investigation versus thorough investigation. So if you're doing an experiment and you're saying, I've destroyed momentum, then you probably should do some investigating because, frankly, you shouldn't be able to do that. Okay. Do you really think if I push something it gets heavier? Do you really think if I push something it gets heavier? Okay, that's me. All right. Do you think you weigh the same on Mars? So again, what would that have to do with the subject? We know it's a different gravity pushing things. You gain a different velocity. The argument is do you think when you're sitting on Earth that you're really not moving? Do you think you're not moving? Because the fact is you are moving. Gravity is pushing you into the Earth at 1 mile an hour, and the Earth is pushing you back at 1 mile an hour. Because you can find out that truth just by, raising you off the Earth 1 centimeter, and you'll see that your weight doubles. Which indicates 1 centimeter is 1 mile an hour. So clearly I can duplicate your weight and velocity, add a second weight, all right, by dropping you a centimeter. So synthetically, you can sort of understand that what's happening when you weigh your normal amount is that you are moving 1 mile an hour. And that on Mars you're moving less than 1 mile an hour. And on the moon you're moving less than 1 mile an hour. And it's just a truth. And the scale only measures the stuff going this way. It doesn't measure the stuff going that way. Scales are sort of made that way. They're measuring the movement in one direction. They're not measuring the movement back up. All right. Or on the sun, do you understand what weight is? See, I'm telling you that you don't understand what weight is, and I've given thorough explanations, and they're all in these 5-minute videos. I mean, there's at least 3 of them on the subject of weight. And the simple fact is that weight is just a velocity. You don't weigh anything until you move into something. Then you weigh something. You apply a pressure to something else. And that's all weight is pressure. And all pressure is mass and velocity. Momentum. Momentum is weight. The more momentum I give you, the heavier you're going to impact something. So I can make a mouse the weight of an elephant by moving it fast enough. Okay, it's entirely dependent on acceleration. No, it's entirely dependent on velocity. So acceleration is a means to the velocity end. Okay, acceleration isn't velocity. Velocity is velocity, and all you're doing is changing velocity. Acceleration is just a change in velocity. You either add it or subtract it. It's not complicated, but your velocity is your weight. The weight of an object is the force acting on the no, you're not weighing the force, you're weighing the mass and the velocity created by the force due to the acceleration of gravity. So again, gravity is just creating velocity. You don't need to worry about the acceleration part. You just need to worry about how long has it been in the gravity and how much velocity has it acquired. Let's see, your thoughts are so ass backwards. And I would say the same. Obviously, I'm saying the same to you, and frankly, you don't have any arguments. And you say, it's embarrassing. Yeah, it's embarrassing for you that you would defend something without any evidence. That you would claim things and then not be able to prove any of them. I mean, really, none of them. It looks like a wave. Well, that's not good enough. It doesn't calculate like one. So if you used Thomas Young's original drawings, you're not going to get right answers. All right. I mean, are you confusing weight and mass? No, you're confusing it. You're not understanding that you can't weigh something if you don't move. You have to move into a scale to make the scale read your weight, your mass. Okay, that's what you have to do. And how fast you move into the scale will decide how much you weigh. It's not any more complicated than that. Okay, are you literally retarded? So again, what am I supposed to say to you? What do you think it is? You think your weight is some property you have innately? You don't have any weight property. Okay, you have to have velocity or you have zero weight. Just a fact. The answer is yes, at least when it comes to physics, so whatever. Brilliant mush. So again, for what purpose is it? There's maybe 4 people that ever read any of this crap, and you're not saying anything. You're not making a counter argument in any form. There's no physics in anything you've said. None. Zero. No links to any physical evidence of the 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast, or all the worse, the harder to prove ones. So, fuck you. I mean, just so useless. I mean, really, you think you're going to convince me with that shit? What do you think you're going to accomplish with that shit? What person who even read that shit could sit there and say, oh yeah, that was a great art. Oh, he sure got him there with that great piece of evidence. Wait, no, he didn't produce any evidence. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, alright. So we'll go find some more stupid comments. Alright, so on the website, I guess I have to move this over. We have some mush by some fairy princess of some kind. It's a little colorful little wheelie thing. It's a little CD thingy. Let's see, considering you're filtering comments, whatever that means, please understand I respect your method as well as you. And then he's going to say, if I might be so bold, why have I not seen you enjoying the outside world? Because I can't, any indication of my real life, okay, just becomes troll food. Okay, so because of trolls, you really can't be an honest person on the internet anymore, because they'll abuse that honesty to try to have your neighbors burn your house down or something. I mean, they'll do really invasive crap. So you really can't do that shit anymore. You used to have a greenhouse. Try again. Too angry. So I don't know what any of that could possibly, how it could relate to anything at all. Nope, can't really. Alright, so it says, the journey matters. So more philosophy from Pansy Wansy. I mean, what the fuck is that shit? No, it really doesn't. Okay, you think it does. I think the destination is everything. Okay, so if you're curing a disease, it's not about, oh, I'm having such fun curing the disease. No, it's about curing the fucking disease. It's about, there's either, it's back to a Yodiism, but there's do and there's do not do. There is no try, okay? And there certainly is no voyaging and journeying, okay? That's really not the game. The game is to put your skills and your tools to something to accomplish, and accomplish it. That's the game. The game is what's going to be written on your tombstone: time-wasting daydreamer, or brilliant, useful, good citizen. A doer. Not a lazy do-nothinger. So fuck you and your whatever, your 4-leaf clover. I don't know. This is some other Dumbo. GL 4-leaf clover. I guess we could do without him also. Yeah. Dude, I'm busy. Yeah. Well, dude, you're too stupid. Oh, it is the same guy. Okay. Too stupid. Alright. So the journey matters. We can just delete that too. Oh, puke. Alright, there's a lot of them out there. Take curling, for examples. Canadians and angular momentum. There's no angular momentum in curling. I mean, it's just, the thing isn't spinning. Okay, the whole idea is to push it in as straight a line as possible. And they're trying to make the lines, they're trying to perfect the path of the object by, warming the ice in front of it. I mean, you're just too silly. Too stupid. Okay, his video setup looks like crap. He's got to redo it, right? Yes. Remind me not to invite you to my barbecue. So, well, I think we don't need any further contact with that person either. Finally, great news. Well, it didn't turn out that great, but we'll see. I think we're on the road, okay, to figuring out that, yes, How fast the lever moves does matter. Okay, so this is about concise and this and that on the photon, so thank you. Reasonably complimentary comments. Let's see, the most important, and I will start with this before I get to another point, is about okay, so it's more on the photons. That's all positive stuff, basically. All right, the analytic sentient, very, very thoughtful, and writes very well. But he's sort of defending unsucker physics as being somehow a challenge to conventional theory. And as his own title of his own book demonstrates, he's just a German bigot, okay? I mean, frankly. He's really not getting to the core problem, which is the phantasmagorical wooey crap projected into physics based on it just looks a little bit like it, so I'm going to call it that. These are Sasquatch pictures. I mean, there's a bear standing up in the fog, and they've decided that, well, he just, it doesn't look like a bear because he's standing up. Some kind of bullshit like that. All right, so he does type a lot of stuff, but there really wasn't any physics in it. There was just a conversation about physics and science and how it's done, blah, blah, blah. So I won't bother with all that, but I do appreciate the comment. They didn't show up, actually. They were blocked. I had to rescue them out of the the review folder. So YouTube, I mean, somebody writes a whole bunch of comment and YouTube thinks that looks like spam or harassment. No, those things, spam, harassment, garbage, usually isn't going to be 5,000 words. Jesus. Anyway, so let's see. I think, well, there's one other comment I might as well read just because it's so bizarre. And, it is a public-ish forum that it's published on, so it's probably okay to read it. Just because it's curious. It's very curious. Alright, back. Alright, so this is sort of in a gray area. It isn't really signed by anybody, so it's nothing. It looks kind of blah, so I'm going to read it anyway. I'm thinking it's a troll pretending to be Piero. Now, he's talking like he's Piero, but I don't think it's Piero. But let's see. Gary, the problem is that you insult me personally. So I've said to him like 10 years ago, I pointed out when he first started this bullshit, that for us, other people, okay, maybe you're different than I am, but to me, when you build yourself a philosophy or you spent a lot of time researching something and you know the subject because you've spent all this time researching, it's almost like your own child. Now, especially in my case, okay, because I did something, in my opinion, innovative and hadn't been done before, so to speak. Yeah, it's more than, it's precious, in all kinds of ways because you've invested so much of your life into it. You spent so many hours thinking on it and working on it that it would be idiotic not to say that that isn't just as important as somebody's kid, okay? Because frankly, people can have kids and it takes, I mean, for the guy who has the kid, it doesn't take any effort at all, right? Obviously, to raise one right does take a tremendous amount of effort. And people don't want to invest that time. They just let the system do it. Let the system raise my kid. But whatever, I'm just saying, so, I mean, it's kind of silly for you to think this personal thing doesn't extend to, say, my wife or my kids. And so if you're going to make fun of them or mock them, that's the same thing to me. Okay, you're going to mock my research, you're going to mock my work with nonsense, with you just saying, it can't be true, you're a dumbass, you're a flat earther. No, I'm not going to really accept that. Fuck you. All right. I know I believe all us discussioneers, so that is Piero's word, but I don't know if he'd use it. so it's just kind of funny talk. Our colleagues, so again, This is where that's like saying, the Nazis and whatever, the anti-Nazis were colleagues. That doesn't make much sense. Sorry. Um, you know, there's obvious distinctions. I mean, the Darwinians versus the religious kooks. I mean, you can't call them colleagues. They're not using the same anything. They're not applying the same anything. They're not all bakers or something. To have something to discuss, we have to have disagreement. Well, frankly, disagreement. You can explore subjects for which you haven't thought about. You can do that, and there's lots of refinements to be done. So you don't necessarily have to disagree about much to have a conversation. But clearly, we disagree about things that are fundamental. I mean, they really are as dramatic as you think it's okay to throw babies into ovens. I could argue. The vegetarian arguments, these are not, harmless arguments. These aren't arguments about nothing. They're about core values, you could argue. They're about something so fundamental. It's as if you're saying you want to rape my sister, and I'm supposed to have a conversation with you about how it's okay to rape my sister. No. Okay. So we should not hate or insult each other personally just because we disagree. Well, again, my argument to you is that you started it, fucker. All right. You just made moronic, naysaying, nitpicking, garbage videos degrading me and the work I had done, and pretended I was anti-science. Okay, you made all kinds of crappy accusations, and frankly, I don't have any obligation to take that, and I didn't. I threw it back and pointed out who's talking. The greatest. I mean, your life includes a bunch of failed experiments. Your theory didn't work. All right. In my book, it's okay to say that idea is stupid. Well, it's okay if you say it with more than I'm just saying it from a point of authority. We all think so. If that's all you're doing, then you didn't do enough. Or even you have to be stupid to think that idea. Yeah, like I said, these aren't the things you said. But it's not okay to say things like you're lying. Well, it is okay to say it. I mean, in my opinion, it's okay to say you're lying if you say they have proven that photons are moved twice as much by gravity. That's lying because the evidence is mush, okay? You can't find the experiment that isn't tainted, okay, by variables that really do need to be controlled. Shooting light through the corona of the sun is not a gravity experiment. It's a particle experiment. It's a fog experiment. Fog bends light. Well, yeah, if you shoot light through fog, it'll get bent. So, it is lying. Okay, you saying that this is all stuff that they have proven or demonstrated or done the experiments to prove, that's a lie. If you tell me that braking distance is the same as, the amount of energy it takes to move something, I'm going to say, fuck you. I mean, obviously that's nonsense. And then if you're going to show me a wave tank where you're deliberately putting noise in and then say, look, there's noise coming out. I mean, that's what he did. He did an interference experiment where he showed a wave tank where they put the waves in so fast that the waves were bouncing off the sides of the surface, doing all kinds of stuff. So, of course, there was interference in the pattern coming out, because there was interference going in. Are things like, you care more about my daughter's death than I do. Well, that's what it came to in the end. I mean, the hostility, it keeps accelerating. But, frankly, there's a grain of truth in it, and I'm not going to retract it as a statement that, man, I would be a substantially changed person by something like that, and you weren't changed at all. You're just as sloppy and aggressive in your rhetoric. I mean, look, it was really tacky. You probably knew your one daughter had a drug problem. Okay. What, I mean, you made a drinking video, for fuck's sake. You've always had this light attitude about how recreational drugs are fun, okay, and this is all part of the fun of life, and you've never taken responsibility for the dark side of that. And then the dark side showed up at your house and blew your house down. And frankly, you didn't even make a statement. Like, shit. There's a real price to pay for this let's all have fun attitude. And you didn't have any. You didn't grow up at all, in my opinion. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, if you can handle it, play with drugs, but don't sit there and sell them. Don't promote it. Don't sit there and say, I've found the perfect way to live a human life, and it's to smoke pot all day. Fuck you. All right, that's just bullshit. That's nonsense. Doing commercials for it, that's really bullshit. And for anyone to do a commercial for alcohol, I mean, that's just, what kind of stupid moron are you? You think anybody is better off drinking? Anyone? It's ever improved a human being? Ever? Okay. I mean, it's just too stupid. Yes, you have the right to waste your brain cells to, fuck yourself. But don't sit there and sell fucking yourself as a great idea. All right. It's slightly embarrassing but true. So I don't know what that part. So that's a premise to this statement or an argument about the previous statement. So who knows? So in a sense, I'm saying, yeah, this is Puro because this is incomprehensible gibberish he's typing. And I believed and still believe we should all be colleagues and even friends. Well, again, I don't know why you would have that perception. I'm arguing that you're basically an advocate for fucking freelance torture, all right? That your whole fucking attitude is abhorrently disgusting. I don't know exactly how, okay, the nature of the Holocaust you're defending is any less, okay, than a Nazi-conceived Holocaust. Your bigotry, clearly, to me, what's the difference? Okay, humans thinking Jews are inferior humans isn't much better than you thinking because animals can't add and subtract, okay, and they can't learn a language, that therefore we can eat them. I mean, fuck you. I mean, it's just too stupid. All right, I think we have more in common as people. Well, I don't think we have much in common, frankly. Our core values are, you're this spiritualism, hokey-pokey, phantasmagorical, unicorn-chasing horse shit, and I'm exactly the opposite, that this whole thing is a fucking fly trap. It's a torture chamber. It's a meat grinder, and you're playing with it. Playing music, doing the grinding, and you have a little monkey dancing. And this is supposed to make it all okay. Look at the dancing monkey. Don't pay attention to the blood and the guts. Or the dead daughters. Oh, fuck. That want to discuss all these things that we do with people that don't want to discuss or think about them. Yeah, well, that's part of the problem, is not too many people are interested anyway. And so until you can force them to be interested, it's a real problem. And your glib attitude just adds to the resistance. You're just you're the enemy, frankly. Okay, you're not even a fence walker. You really are part of the problem. But we cannot discuss things because you make it personal. Well, I'm arguing that you do. So fuck you. I know you think it's personal to have your idea criticized. I think it's personal when you don't attack it with credible arguments, okay, and you just slander it. Yeah. I mean, if you say my kid is a whore or something, okay, and you have no evidence that it's a whore, then I'm going to be pissed off. All right, but to me, it's just about going outside the ideas and saying, oh, well, you're a pedophile. Well, I'm just saying, to me, that's all you started with. That's all your counter argument was, is I'm not going to even look at it. I'm not going to pay any attention, even though, frankly, you should know as a scientist that it takes kind of, any idea, all right, is going to be connected to a bunch of other ideas. and it's about how much of that total system ties together than one individual part of it that you can sit there and say, well, that's too abstract or too far away. No, it isn't really if you look at the whole picture. Like that's the same thing as saying you don't understand physics. It doesn't matter. The point is that the quality of your counter argument was so beneath what I should have to accept. Okay, I just shouldn't have to accept something that lowbrow. So your argument was so lowbrow, it starts off so wrong. Okay, like my intentions and the whole purpose and function, that there's no point. I mean, clearly in everything I've said, I've explained logically why I'm saying it. So it wasn't like I didn't explain why I see the inconsistency in your statements. I mean, I make the point that, well, doesn't it seem a little bizarre that the fastest thing moving in the universe is bent twice as much by gravity? That doesn't sound right, does it? I mean, where does that fit with the whole story? That the lightest thing is affected more by gravity. Just a special thing. It just happens to be. Okay, and nothing else is affected this way. Just this one thing. Okay. This one thing that's never affected by another force, by the way. Alright, well anyway, I don't want to go into all the bullshit, but anyway, just a bizarre comment, frankly. So if it's written by a troll, it's really super bizarre. If it's written by Puro, it's just bizarre because he could send it by some other more credible means than this obscure hide your identity thing. Why is he resorting to that? I mean, I've never posed a threat to Puro's security. I have all his personal, I have a bunch of personal information that I haven't shared. It's not like it's a threat in some way. But anyway, very bizarre. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing is so pointless to even talk about because who fucking cares? So let's say we were having this argument the other way around. You were making the counter, the flat earth argument. I'd still play your videos. I'd still respond to them. What do I care if you got a bunch of shit rhetoric in them? That only makes my point stronger, right? So the dumber you talk, the better I look. So how would that stop me from responding to the specific points? And you haven't responded to anything. Anything. Except, the little tiny bits here and there. You just go F equals MA and say there, it's a mathematical thing. It's not a, you don't take it seriously. Somehow it doesn't matter. I mean, per second, yeah, we used it to square something. And yes, squaring something because it's per second doesn't make much sense. But it gets the square into the equation. That's all we need it for. Some sort of bullshit. Yeah. So, yeah, fuck you. There's nothing stopping you from engaging, okay, in the debate, except you're a pussy. That's it. There's no other. What's the thing stopping you? Except you're a pussy. Yeah, there's nothing. Okay. I'm not. Yeah. Not enough said. Like I said, if the only thing that stops me is like I'm not going to participate with people who are going to oblige me, okay, to inform them that they shouldn't be using my real name and they shouldn't do this. I don't want to waste a bunch of time doing that. But there's nothing overtly threatening to you in any of my derogatory rhetoric about you as a internet personality. And again, most of this stuff is public. It's not like it's private. But anyway, okay, enough said. Blah, blah, blah. It's just ridiculous. Yes, really, just ridiculous. I mean, like I said, I just can't imagine the scenario where I would run away from the fight. I mean, there's nothing. Your cheap rhetoric is going to scare me away? No, cheap rhetoric isn't going to do that. Personal invasions will, but cheap rhetoric won't. All right, somebody calling me a pedophile is not going to stop me. obviously, I think. Okay, so till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot.